And hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show. We are, of course, joined by the head coach of the Wofford Terriers women's basketball team, Jimmy Garrity. And Jimmy, I was about to say, since we last spoke, a lot has transpired. A lot has gone on, but the Terriers, since we last had a coach's show, have gone 3-1, currently 8-4, 4-1 of the Southern Conference. So I'm going to guess if you could have signed on the dotted line for a start like this season, way back, gosh, when we were supposed to get going in November, would you have signed for this kind of start right then?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to forecast back then, I would probably say so. I mean, we are off to a good start now. Now looking back, you're like, golly, like to have that one game back. But honestly, I feel really good about where we're at, how we've played thus far. I know there's a lot of games still left, but feeling pretty good.
You know, I think we closed the last show saying there is never a bad time to be in first place. And right now, you still find yourself in a three-way tie for first place with Mercer and Sanford. Is the team in a good place, not just in the standings, but how the girls feel about themselves? And you know, like you said, every coach, every player wants to be perfect. There's always that one that sticks in your craw a little bit. But overall, big picture, is the team in a good place right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are. So, we've had a couple of games. Just came off a couple of road games where, game one we played really well. Game two, not so much. Western played well though; they shot the ball really well, and kind of similar to that East Tennessee State game at home. So, game one we really shot the ball well and played well. Game two, we didn't shoot it that well, turned the ball over a little bit too much. But in the end, we made enough plays. And I think, each of those games, our players have learned something about themselves. And at the end of the day, just to be together and in this crisis that we're in with COVID and everything, it's just great to be playing, great to be practicing together.
Well, let's begin with that two-game homestand with ETSU. Like you were saying, blowout win that first game. Really, game one, you guys had so much balance. I think you had 4 players in double figures. Nia Lutz led the way with 17. Jackie Carmen had 14. Leah Harris, Lily Hatton, both in double figures. Man, when you put that balance out on the floor offensively, it's really hard for the other team to defend. And I think we saw that in that first game against the Bucks.
It is, and it's nice to, like, when you score the ball, it can make up for other deficiencies. So, you may not be as well on defense, but when you're putting the points on the board, it really, really helps. So, game one, we really shot the ball really well, shot it at a high percentage from three. Took about, I think we were 16, 17 shots from three, which is about really where we want to be. And shot a pretty high percentage. But then we got out and ran in transition a little bit too, and had good balance both inside and out, as well as throughout the team. So was really, really happy with that. But when you can score, it makes everything else just a little bit easier.
And when you lead wire to wire like that, and the game is pretty much out of hand, by the beginning of the fourth quarter, what does it enable you to do in terms of maybe resting some players because you're going to be back at it in 48 hours, maybe giving some of the younger players some minutes and trying to get their feet wet? It opens up a lot of things for a coach, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it helps. I mean, we play quite a few players to begin with, so we've been kind of experimenting a little bit with as you guys call it, the line change, and we're going 5 for 5 in substitution, and that has worked well for us, and so we'll continue to do that. But yeah, it lets you get some of the younger players or some of the players that don't get quite as many minutes to get them in and get comfortable, because there is going to come a time when the game is really on the line, and they're going to need to step up, so they'll have that experience from games like that.
So a blowout win in game one, and then we have that dynamic that we talked about a lot. You got to go back and play the same team in 48 hours on the same floor. They're cranky. They want retribution. And that double overtime, what a classic of a game. We were able to watch both overtimes while we were traveling. And boy, I mean, I guess I could begin and end the conversation with Lily, because especially in the overtime, she had a big bucket to take the lead in the first overtime. She makes a big block to make sure we go to a second overtime, and she has the game winner essentially in overtime number 2. The way she has turned it on this year in very important stretches, how gratifying is that to you?
Yeah, I mean, and especially for that game, she didn't really get going there until the fourth quarter. I'm not sure she had scored any, or maybe just 2 points prior to that. And then hitting those big buckets down the stretch. We drew up a play, that we like to get into late in game situations where we penetrate, and we got her in the short corner, Jamari in the other short corner, and 2 shooters on the wings. And we had a great pass. I think it was Helen made a great pass to her. And normally, man, she shoots that shot at a really high percentage. She happened to miss that. I thought this game was going to be over in regulation. But then when she came back and she scored a couple buckets in overtime, and then, as you said, made that big block down towards the stretch at the end. And on the offensive end, we kind of drew up a play where we're trying to get 2 to guard us, and we kicked to her, and she had a great pump fake, one side dribble, about an 18-foot jumper that hit nothing but the bottom of the net. And I felt good about that when it left her hand. But yeah, it was a heck of a college basketball game, back and forth. At one point, with a couple minutes to go, I'm like, God, I feel good about this. 5-point lead, a 4-point lead. The next thing you know, we're down by 2, and then the same thing happened on the other. Now we're down by 5, and the next thing you know, we hit back-to-back threes, and we're right there in it again. So it was exhausting as a coach, but I'm sure as a fan, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Correct me if I'm wrong. First overtime game since you've been at Wofford, at least in conference
Yeah,
play?
I can't believe that either. I guess that's true. I didn't really even know that.
What's different about overtime in terms of coaching strategy? You usually get a couple of timeouts. I know you hadn't had a chance to perfect your overtime strategy, but what do you tell the girls? And they're probably tired. They're not used to logging all these minutes. What were those timeouts in between overtimes like?
Well, it's really important in overtime that you get off to a good start. I mean, if you're on defense first, you need to get that first stop. And typically, if you can get the advantage early on, you feel pretty good about themselves. And at the opposite end, if you're down, you might question a few things, like getting a little bit of quick mode and panic mode. But it went back and forth to us. We were up, and then we were down, and then tied it. But at the end of the day, you got to make plays to win in overtime.
Well, it all turned out fine. A big win on one day, a squeaker by 1 on the other, but 2 W's for the Terriers against ETSU. When we come back, how about a nice weekend in the mountains for the Terriers? A trip up to Cullowhee. We'll talk about that as the Jimmy Garrity Show rolls on, brought to you by RJ Rockers.
Wofford takes down Carolina, and the Furman Paladins is defeated.
The underdog. The long shot. The nobody from nowhere, never gonna happen in your dreams, kid. 100 to 1 shot. We know something about that. We're with you every step of the way.
And welcome back to the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show, brought to you by RJ Rockers. I'm Jim Noble. And Coach, I was kind of joking about the nice little vacation trip up to Cullowhee. Hey, it's a beautiful area. Don't get me wrong. But Western Carolina certainly can prove to be a tough opponent. You guys went in there for another 2 road games, the way this crazy schedule is, and really, once again, played well in game number 1. It was a 20-point win. You held a team to 45 points.
Yeah.
If you can do that in the Southern Conference, you're going to win a lot of games regardless of what you do on the other end.
Yeah, anytime, we're trying to really hold teams under 55 points, and hopefully you can get to 60 or more. But yeah, they're a tough team, and he's got them playing really, really well. and Cullowhee is a tough place to play. We've played well up there the last couple of years, but nothing's been easy at all. And I remember a couple of weeks ago you asked me about the format, playing back to back, and at first I told you I kind of like the setup a little bit, but I said let's wait a couple of weeks and see how I like it. And I tell you what, it's tough. It is tough playing somebody back to back. If you win that first game, especially if you win it in the fashion that we've won our first games in, you might be feeling a little bit overconfident, which is not a good thing. And then on the opposite end, if you're down and you lost that first one, well, hey, you don't want to lose 2 in a row, and you're going to get their best shot. And that's kind of what happened in our first set series with East Tennessee State, and then again with Western. And the difference really was game 1 up there in Cullowhee. We really, again, shot the ball really well, shot it from 3 well, had decent balance in our scoring. And then game 2 on Saturday, we didn't shoot it very well. I don't think we went 1 for 16 or 1 for 17 from 3. And we didn't hit that 3 until like the last minute or 2 in the game. So that was a huge difference. And then, we made a couple of runs at them, but then at the end we just couldn't quite sustain that run, and we'd give up a bucket and get back down 6-8 points, and it was tough.
Yeah, before that second game, your 4-0 conference start was the best conference start in school history. And obviously, when you start using words like history, you probably have to temper expectations and say, ladies, this season's very, very far from over. We're only about a third of the way through the conference season. I think the women are a little bit further along than the men. And you have to fight again, what we're talking about, fight against the complacency that naturally sets in after a great first game performance. Coaches can talk to their blue in the face, and players probably say, okay, yeah, but we just beat this team by 25. So how do you counteract that after you said everything you can say? Do you have to rely perhaps on senior leadership to have them go in when you guys aren't around and say, hey, he means what he says? They're going to come out really, really tough the next game.
Yeah, it is. And that you're so true in saying it. It's just human nature. It is human nature, and we all get caught up in it. And it's tough to as much as you talk about that till you're blue in the face to them. That they'll tell you all the right things. Hey, we got you, coach. We know they're going to come at us in the bed. And it's a little bit of both, a little bit of that. And Western played better the second game, and we didn't play quite as good as we did the first game. But at the end of the day, it is basketball, and it doesn't matter who your opponent is, whether it's back to back or whether they're 2 weeks away. You gotta, in this league, you gotta have your best effort night in and night out, especially on the road, to get wins.
And when you dig a hole in the second, and when you dig a hole in the second quarter, and now they're believing that they can win. For you, the shots aren't falling. I've always thought the Ramsey Center is a tough place to shoot. That background, that depth that you don't have really in any arena you play in until you go to Asheville for a conference tournament. When the shots aren't falling early, sometimes that can mess with a shooter's mind a little bit.
It does. And I think it got into our head a little bit. And when we started out 0 for 15 from 3, and really they were all good looks. We weren't taking bad shots. We just weren't making them. And then, we didn't get many second chance opportunities there either.
Well, let's look ahead, and coming up, you've got the opposite dynamic. You're going to go on the road for a couple of games to UNC Greensboro Thursday and Saturday. Then the weekend after that, back home for a couple of games against Chattanooga. UNCG is struggling a bit right now, especially in conference play, but we've always seen the talent that they have, Jimmy. Obviously, you'll try to keep them down as best you can, but what do you expect this weekend up in Greensboro?
I think it's going to be a grinded out type game. I really do. And I think it's going to be one of those games, good teams can win in the 70s, but also win in the low 50s and 40s. And UNCG's defense is very good. I expect to see a lot of zone. So at the same time, we might get open looks from the outside, but what if you're not hitting them? are you going to fall into that trap like we did on Saturday at Western? But their length and athleticism is as good as anybody in the league. They're hungry for wins. You know, they got a split at East Tennessee State this past weekend on the road, so they'll be looking forward to play us on their home court Thursday and Saturday.
I'm always interested the way they've got things set up this year with a Thursday Saturday game. What Fridays are like? Obviously, the players have schoolwork. I know you and your staff. You make sure everybody is on top of that. And you provide them opportunities. You try to get to the arena, maybe get a shoot around if that's available. But in this situation that we're all in, things like meals, things like hotels, they're all different. You can't all congregate and hang out in the same space very much like you used to. So
Yeah.
how have you guys attempted to make Fridays as busy but relaxing at the same time as possible?
Well, when we went to this past weekend at Western, we went up there Thursday afternoon, came back after the game, and then went up Saturday morning. Against Greensboro, we're going to stay out the whole time. So we'll go up there Thursday afternoon, get up there an hour and a half, hour 45 before the game, and then play Thursday night. And then Friday, it's a long day. You know, we're really going to try to get our rest and get our legs back healthy. But we'll have a shoot around. It'll be light, probably get up a lot of shots, work on some things that we didn't do so well the night before, and then prepare for Saturday's game. But with COVID, normally you'd want to try to keep them busy. Maybe we go bowling or out to a movie or something like that, or game night. But it is difficult because, you can't really go to a restaurant. I'm not sure going to the movies or the bowling alley, that's not very smart either. So we'll try to figure out something we can do to occupy their time. And our players are so in tune with their academics. They're going to have a lot on their plate academically that they can work on Friday too. But it'll be a long day, so it'll be interesting to see how staying out works for us. But hopefully that's the right decision for us.
All right, when we come back, we're going to take a little closer look for the first time this season at Jimmy Garrity's staff, a staff that's been very consistent over the last 3 or 4 years. We'll take you inside the Terriers basketball staff on the women's side. That's coming up next here on the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show. And welcome back to the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show, brought to you by RJ Rockers. I'm Jim Noble. And Coach, boy, your staff, I'm so impressed by them. Every time I wander in when you guys are practicing, every time I'm watching games, staffs that are able to stay together, and obviously yours has been really intact for 3 years. Before we get to each person individually, what does that do for you? What does that do for the players without a revolving door of assistant coaches?
Yeah, well, I mean, that they get the sense of family, and we've been together for a long time. And first of all, they're great human beings. They're great friends. They're great employees for the college, and they have great basketball minds. And we all like spending time together. But yeah, that one of their favorite things to do is teach and coach. And so individually with the players, they do just a remarkable job. And I am very, very blessed and feel very fortunate that the staff that I have, I think they're the best staff in the world. So I'm very lucky.
Okay, rank has its privileges. So we'll begin with associate head coach Mike Merrill, who's in his 4th year at Wofford. But what, year 7, 8 with Jimmy Garrity? He was with you at Anderson and UNC Wilmington. Mike is so positive all the time. And you mentioned that word that jumped out at me, teaching. One of the best teachers I think I've seen on a basketball court.
He is. He loves to teach the game. He's great. He's got a great balance. He knows when to challenge it, and all 3 of them have the balance. know when to put their arm around you and hug you a little bit, know when to get on you and chew you out a little bit. And they're all three great motivators. But yeah, Mike's been with me the entire time. I remember when I got offered the job at Anderson, I called him up and said, Coach, I got the job. I need you to come. And that was on, I think, a Wednesday. He said, well, when you need me to be there? And I said, how about Friday? And he packed his stuff up and slept on our couch for the first month or two while we were at Anderson, and just, has followed me along here. So he's a great resource for me. He's a great resource for the younger coaches too, and he's just great with our players.
I don't know if you break down primary responsibilities for each coach. What would Mike's primary responsibility be?
Yeah, he coaches the post, so he's done an excellent job with them, and growing their game, adding a little bit onto their game each year, and not not throwing 15 things at them, trying to perfect all of them. Let's just add one or two things on each year, and then by the time you're a senior, you've perfected about 8-9 moves that are really, really good. And he's just done a tremendous job with them.
Amanda Paris is in her third year with Wofford, also your recruiting coordinator, which I'm sure brings in a whole another batch of organizational skills and things like that. Tell us about Amanda and what fans may not know about her and the job that she does.
Yeah, well, she's awesome too. She coaches the guards too, as well as you said, social media and recruiting. She handles all of our social media stuff. And of course, she is awesome at that. Some of our graphics that we put together and mail outs that we send to our recruits. But she's constantly on the phone with high school coaches, prospects, their families. And that's, you mentioned that a little bit. That's a lot of organization is involved in that, and in splitting that up and how we're going to rotate that within the staff, and handling trips on to recruiting trips, as well as official visits, unofficial visits here. But she, again, a great human being, does an unbelievable job with our players. And I tell you what, she was one heck of a player in college. She won multiple championships, all conference teams, and she is a great resource for our players. So when she shows her voice in practice, she is really one that they tune into, because she's been there and she's done it. Mm-hmm. And she was a heck of a player, and she's a heck of a coach too.
You mentioned social media. Is she the face behind the camera when Jimmy Garrity goes into the locker room after a big game?
Yeah, usually. Yeah, she usually. I always tell her, hey, don't get me when you're in there. Get them. I look silly jumping up and down. But yeah, she is that person that controls all that. Sometimes I start a little bit too early, and then I have to. Whoa! She reels me back and start all over again.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Trent Bunn, also in his third year. I call him the Energizer Bunny. I've never seen a more positive guy. He's always jumping around. He's always got a smile on his face. I don't think anybody loves their job as much as Trent does.
Oh, he's awesome too. And I can remember when we had an opening, I called, and he had a very successful high school career, had a great job at Nightdale High School in the Raleigh area. And when I called him up and I just said, Trent, I think this is a great opportunity. I really need you. And he thought about it. He came down to Spartanburg on his own and didn't tell me, just wanted to walk campus and talk to people. But he is a unbelievable human being, a great friend to everybody. And he coaches our guards too. And he can play a little bit too. So he gets in there and mixes it up with them. But he's great with recruits. He's unbelievable with their parents, and when we bring them on campus. So we are very, very fortunate to have Trent on our staff, and he does a fantastic job with our program, and loves the college. He loves Wofford College and the community.
His background too, obviously when he's coached under people like Sylvia Hatchell,
Mhm.
Dave Hanners. When you bring in assistant coaches, I'm sure they all bring a part and a piece of things that they have learned on the way. And you as the head coach have to put all those ideas together and come up with the best thing for your team. But do you welcome that? Do you welcome different styles and different opinions sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a staff, we get input from everybody, and we'll meet quite a bit as we game plan, and obviously before the season starts and things like that. But we'll voice our opinions, and in some, sometimes we go my way, sometimes it's Trent's, sometimes it's a man, sometimes we're all thinking the same thing. But at the end of the day, I'm just so blessed that when we leave that meeting, everybody is on the same page. And so, as a head coach, I can't ask for anything more. And I welcome their opinions because they're a lot smarter than me. They give great ideas and present it well thought out.
Mhm.
And I know, me, Trent, and Mike, we all worked together at UNCW way back when. So I remember back then when we were all assistant coaches, we always said when one of us gets a head job, we're all going to be back on that staff. And it's funny that when we go out on the road recruiting, you see some coaches that knew us back then from our UNC Wilmington days, and they always say, "Hey, I see you got the old band back together here again." And so I'm very, very fortunate and blessed to have the staff that I have. They are tremendous people, tremendous coaches, and great friends.
Well, you can't argue with the results so far. Tied for first in the conference, a chance to do some more damage on the road this weekend, and then back home in the friendly confines of Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium the weekend after that. Jimmy, always enjoyed the time we get to spend together. Have a great road trip. Have a great home stand, and we'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
That sounds great, Jim. It's going to take our best effort this week to come away with some victories at Greensboro. So I appreciate it.
Sounds good. And thanks to all of you for continuing to watch the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show, brought to you by RJ Rockers. Until next time, I'm Jim Noble for Coach Jimmy Garrity here on the Coach Jimmy Garrity Show.